Protonic Reversal!
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed. It is a science thing. It is a science place. It is a scientific fact that we are all up in your face. It is time, once again, for the one, the only Protonic Reversal. Total break in format today. We're just going to dig right into it. This is a supplementary episode with Mr. Jerry Casale of goddamn DEVO. We missed some stuff in the episode before. We're coming back to get it. So, radioneutron.com for the archives, patreon.com/Protonic Reversal if you want these shows sooner. And we are live once again with none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jerry Casale. Jerry, welcome back to the show, man.
How are you?
I'm doing well, getting by in these crazy quarantine times. The better question is, how are you? I don't know if you want to get into it or not, but I know you've. It was a bit of a bummer yesterday. You were originally meant to be on the show yesterday, but
my poor dog.
Yeah,
it's a 70-pound Labradoodle, and she tore her ACL.
Too many deadlifts? Is that what it was, or?
Those breeds are just, hell bent on exercise, of retrieving, jumping, running. They love it, and unfortunately, they will do that to their own detriment.
Right. Well, we very much appreciate your time. The reason why do we do anything in life? But the reason why we're talking to you right now is, and I'm using the royal we, I hope you'll note,
because we left some things unattended.
We left some things on the table, and there were some things where specifically you even gave me an opening on some of them, and we just went another direction. And right. I really appreciated you saying, hey, I'm totally fine with doing a follow-up. One of the biggest, most egregious ones to me, because I just find the whole thing so compelling, is I was hoping you might be able to tell me about a human highway.
All right. Sure. Yeah. I mean, that is worth a chapter in a book, at least. The way that came about was so kind of strange, and it was, a long process. But it's because Tony Basil and Dean Stockwell, the actor, came to see DEVO at the Starwood when we were showcasing there in the summer of '77, and they brought Iggy Pop, and Iggy had already heard a tape that we had left when he was doing the Idiot Tour. Was it Idiot Tour with David Bowie playing keyboards?
That sounds right. Yeah, the timeline's that seems about right. Yeah, it was one of those iconic ones.
77, and you just think these cassettes are going to be thrown away because every aspiring artist in the world comes up to a successful act. It beseeches them and bothers them, and I had no illusions about that. I thought it was kind of a futile act. But
right, you didn't think like, hey everybody, here's the big break. It was just more like, all right, whatever.
No, not at all. And of course, until Iggy comes backstage at Starwood, we have no knowledge that anything ever happened, right? So he's like, I loved you guys' tape, man. You guys are crazy. And, we liked Iggy Pop, and it was just amazing that he was backstage. And Dean had been involved with Dennis Hopper, and they were fashioning this movie with Neil Young, and they were going up to San Francisco and working on it. And so Dean took a cassette. He asked for a cassette of the demo that Iggy heard, and he took it to Neil. And Neil...
And the Neil in this question is, of course, Neil Young, just to be clear. For people that aren't familiar with the story, yeah.
And he flipped out when he heard Mongoloid.
Right.
And
why wouldn't he? It's a great tune.
Yeah. So what happened was we're expanding our awareness, our footprint in the culture, and suddenly we're playing a lot of clubs, and Mabuhay Gardens asks us to come up there,
right?
And that would be punk, new wave scene venue, and we play, and Neil comes to see us because he's in Half Moon Bay,
which is pretty exciting. I mean, it's definitely someone who marches to the beat of his own drummer, has his own ideas, and even if big swings, big misses sometimes, and an artist.
And as much as I liked Neil Young, because I remember after the killings at Kent State, which are the 50th anniversary this weekend, and I was supposed to be there.
Which I want to talk about as well, but I figured we'd start off with something a little lighter.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing lighter than that, right? I would have been there at the 50th weekend-long ceremonies, and I was supposed to speak. It's all canceled, as you know. Okay. So what I've been doing, and am going to do more of, is I've been doing what we're doing right now, and phone interviews. And a good friend of mine who's a director here in Los Angeles, Alexander Durbin, shot a 10-minute piece with my kind of recollections of that day, and did a beautiful collage, directed 10-minute piece.
I saw a thing on YouTube that I presume was a piece of that, and was very
it's up in front of me, called Order to Shoot.
Yeah.
Order to Shoot. So anyway, that's all been going on, and all these crazy interviews with the fact that this is the 40th anniversary of the release of Freedom of Choice, which came out May 18th, 1980.
A much better celebration, to be sure.
Well, except that, as the song said, freedom of choice is what you got, freedom from choice is what you want. That's where we are now. Freedom from choice. This under the cover of COVID-19, now this right-wing ideologue dictatorship that we live under has moved vast amounts of power and wealth while everybody's looking the other way like a shell game. And they pretty much nailed the last nail in the coffin of rule of law and democracy. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not being dramatic. It's happened. What we were warning about then, it took them 40 years, but these right-wing tyrannical motherfuckers, they don't give up, and they did their job. Yeah. You just have to ask, why did you want to bring it down? Why did you want to do it? How does that help you? Yeah, and the only answer is, these people only care about power.
Yeah,
they don't care
exactly.
About
the rest of it's
vision. We're using power. It's just about power. That's where we're at,
and it's consistent. I mean, what they say is, what's the scorpion and the turtle crossing the river. That parable, right?
Yeah,
it's their nature.
Yeah. It really is. Yeah, it really is. What the scorpion uses the turtle, then it kills him.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's
the world I know. That sounds like the music business I grew up in.
So speaking of which, we were talking about Human Highway. We'll come back to Kent State.
So Neil,
we'll cheer everyone up with some Kent State stories, but first let's talk about Neil Young and the craziness of Human Highway.
Comes to see us, and we hang out after the show and talk, and he tells us about his movie, and he wants us to be in it. And so that was the beginning. And over the next 6 months, things happened. First, we came back to San Francisco in 78. And after we saw the Sex Pistols' last show at either Winterland or Cow Palace, I can't remember. We were there when they melted down. They broke up.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, they broke up on stage. It was a big...
Saw it all happen.
Yeah.
And then we stayed and we shot some scenes that made no sense to us, but Neil was shooting some banquet scene on Sutter Street next to some famous theater up there where, because plays were a big deal up there. And Neil was, king of the town. And we shot in this big banquet hall with this feast where, they bring in a full roasted pig on spits. And,
right.
and
Bacchanalia sort of scene, yeah.
We don't know what's going on, right? It's like Dennis Hopper and Dean are stoned out of their minds on probably a cocktail of drugs.
Right.
And it's all these friends of theirs from, the music scene in Laurel Canyon and in Northern California,
Mm-hmm.
and Dean Stockwell's actor friends, and people that would end up working with David Lynch on Eraserhead and the original, the thing they just brought, Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks, yeah. Sure.
And I met all these people when they were young, and there they are, and they just go, okay, you and Mark are at this table, and they're going to bring in this big pig, and everybody's like feasting and going nuts.
Right. Now feast. Here's the stage direction. Feast.
So, of course, what Mark and I do is we steal the pig's head
As one does, yes.
and start marching around doing Lord of the Rings. I mean, not Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Flies.
Right. Different lord, different literary work, yes.
Yeah. That's the word we like, Lord of the
Right, I was
Flies.
going to say, the one that shows the systemic vulgarity of natural human behavior with a breakdown
Well,
of
the
quote-unquote
evolution,
civilization.
yeah. Yeah, you give them an inch and they take a mile. You poke them and they turn into the animals they are, and not good animals. So, yeah, Lord of the Flies was part of our trilogy. We liked Animal Farm,
Mm-hmm.
Brave New World, and Lord of the Flies, right? So those were our references.
Well, and I feel like Brave New World was more prescient than 1984, which I enjoyed, but I felt like applied
Correct.
the wrong approach, because the thing with Soma is the idea that, oh no, everybody's addicted to these things that they look at.
Right.
Which is like, that's much more prescient than like a big government oppression situation.
Right, and they're controllable because they're on this drug.
Yep.
And so
the
you look at-
manifestation of that, I think, is much closer to reality than
you mix that up with Animal Farm, you have where we're at right now.
Yep.
Where they dumbed down the population, they destroyed the will of the people. People don't even know what the principles of democratic rule of law are anymore. So they're like the sheep in Animal Farm that look at the barn, and there's the rules on the side of the barn, and then they change.
Right, then the rules change, and then they know that's the way it's always been.
And the horse goes, it didn't say that last week, and the sheep goes, yes, it did.
Four legs bad, 2 legs better.
Oh, yeah.
That's the turn.
So, I mean, what
right
you're watching
there.
every day now is Animal Farm, just bold-faced lies, gaslighting. I like his new press secretary girl. They keep finding the greatest people. You know, he said he'd find the best people and drain the swamp.
Right.
What he did, he drained the swamp and took what was in the bottom and gave them jobs in every department.
Right.
It's called a cacostocracy. And that's where we're at.
It's true, and it's ubiquitous. And to be fair, I found that woman incredibly obnoxious when she was just a quote-unquote analyst on CNN, which is to say a talking point spewer. But that's neither here nor there. We're back
it's
to...
diabolical. I'm impressed. It's diabolical. I watch it. It's demonic, and it frightens and sickens me.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a lot of her, though. This is the thing. It's like they breed them somewhere in a hangar, or it's like the pod people in
identical blonde women that...
No, but what's the movie where...
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Thank you. We are in it.
Yeah.
These people are Invasion of the Body Snatchers. They will point and scream. They point and scream every day, right? Yeah, especially if you're not one of them, they'll point at you. Ah! So that's what's happening. You can't exaggerate this. You can't. I mean, I'm reduced to gallows humor because we are now powerless. We made ourselves powerless. The lack of outrage, the lack of organization to fight back and resist, let them completely run rampant like rapists in the street. and they've done it. They've done it. It's over.
So we were talking about Human Highway, and so you had the pig head. You're running around. You're making it entertaining for yourself in a very, very weird situation.
But here's what's funny. There's some kind of, there was some kind of entitled, successful hippie code that we didn't understand, and we transgressed that code. And it's like they didn't care for it, huh? Their shenanigans. Yeah, they were put off. They were shocked. Like, we took it too far. It was all fun, but we took it too far.
Of course.
Anyway, none of that stuff ever made it into the movie, because then Neil changed his whole idea about what this movie would be and started to write a scripted movie that was like a satire of Wizard of Oz.
Right.
With a nuclear apocalypse, the finale.
Dystopian Alice in Wonderland. Perhaps.
Everybody died.
More so than that abysmal Tim Burton movie, which was just... Anyway, I don't want to get into this movie critiques, but...
So once they decided that, then he came and he had seen the early videos that I directed, the DEVO videos I directed, and he goes, I want you to direct a scene in my movie. I'll give you my crew and my technical people and my DP, but I want you guys to do a scene that's pretty DEVO. And he had told us this plot about Valley and where the nuclear waste plants were. Right. I said, well, Neil, what if we're disgruntled nuclear waste workers? And he goes, he's laughing.
He thought that was swell, huh?
We had this guy totally wrong. I mean, we thought he was Grandpa Granola, and then we meet him, and he's like this enthusiastic, way out guy, very smart, and really creative. Right. Really interesting guy.
Not boring in any way, shape, or form.
No. So he was like up for it. It's like, okay, you're nuclear waste workers. I go, yeah. So we're thinking we're going to do this cover of the Kingston Trio song, It Takes a Worried Man, and he starts laughing because he can't wait to hear Devo's
what's that going to sound like? Yeah.
And I go, and we're disgruntled workers, and we're loading barrels of nuclear waste onto a truck from a loading dock, right? He puts me together with his whole production crew, and they create a 3-door loading dock, right. And Neil gives me this fantastic vintage open rail truck from the 40s that he owned because he was a collector. It's an incredible looking truck. They just put some logos on the doors, and other than that, it's what the truck was. And I showed him the outfits we wanted to wear, and I said, we'd have to be breathing from breather tubes.
The breathing tubes. I appreciate the attention to detail with that, where it's like, if you were actually transporting this material, you would have to have some sort of breathing apparatus.
So he got his props people on that. And, what they created looked right, but it was so painful. It was... It was cutting up the inside of our nostril.
Oh, no. That's terrible.
Yeah, every take was more painful. And we started using Vaseline.
I heard of suffering for your art, but this is ridiculous.
Yeah, with the clamps that they had that would fit up in the nose piece to hold the hose. We're just digging into the flesh. And so, but DEVO, we were masochistic. We definitely suffered for our art. I mean, our yellow suits, we would lose 4 pounds a night on stage in those. And, we were used to wearing things that were totally uncomfortable.
Yeah, they fit the aesthetic and they fit the visual that you were trying to present, which made it a sacrifice you're willing to make.
So, we did this piece, and the piece was a piece. In other words, it was a segment. It had a beginning, middle, and end. And, I worked hard on it, and their people storyboarded it for me, and I was getting to work with 35 millimeter film, a set, good lighting.
This is like not a small affair. I mean, this is, as much as thinking of scope and scale and the with the
millions of his own money.
Yeah, exactly. So and you have to understand, and I do this sometimes just for the younger listeners, that pre Robert Rodriguez school of film, you couldn't make a movie as cheaply as you can, certainly not now, or even 15, 20 years ago. So this is a good investment of money. This was
classic movie making. There was no technology like you have today.
CC DeMille style almost, like there really wasn't that much difference technology-wise from the classic era of filmmaking to this era. So I just want to set that stage that this is a big deal. This is a big deal. Again, 35 millimeter film. Yeah, lots of money being spent.
And I felt it was a big deal. As a fledgling filmmaker, I was like, I can't believe this. I can't believe I'm using 35 millimeter film and I have a crew. Like, this is what you dreamed of, right?
Yeah.
But, of course, they weren't as diligent as me because they're just doing things like on the fly. They're winging it all the time.
Right, was that like part of the aesthetic and the appeal for it that Neil wanted?
It came down from on high. Here's where Neil is making it up as he goes, and here's all his cronies, right? And they're all part of the cult, and they believe in Neil, so they're running with it. Even though I'm working with technicians who know what they're doing, right?
Right.
They're not like used to being told, no, that angle's too wide. No, you gotta bring the dolly down quicker on the camera rig.
Sure, because they're figuring out blocking on the fly. Like lighting is being determined, by phases of the moon. Who knows? I mean,
so they think, who is this guy? Who the fuck does he think he is? Right?
With this guy,
hair, this skinny guy with short hair, this new wave hair, and wearing black. But we shot great stuff. And there was an original cut where the whole piece was cut together. Everybody seemed to love it, right? Everybody was laughing. Well, then just fast forward to what happened, which is this movie's never coming out. It's never coming out. It's never coming out. It keeps morphing and changing. Neil's cutting it. He's cutting it. He's cutting it. Finally, his producer, Larry Johnson, says, we have a cut for you to look at. And this is now 1982, right? We shoot it in 79. So 3 years later,
right,
we're looking at this cut, and what they've done is they've taken what we did and made it like a jokey through line in the movie, like where you're seeing little bits of it, and then it goes away to their plot. Then it comes back, and we're still on the loading dock a little bit further, and then we're in the... And so we appear like 5 times over like a 20-minute segment of the movie.
Right.
It's completely incomprehensible at that point.
I saw it one time, and that was about my takeaway. Wow, that looked cool. I have no idea what was going on, and I didn't realize DEVO was in this. Was the 3 things I thought of in that order.
And you know what? 2 years ago, Neil does a 4th director's cut
because the world's demanded it.
It played in some art theaters in the major cities, in the blue state cities. And I have to say, and this is something that never happens, right? It's like you can't polish a turd, and once you make a misstep up front and then you start trying to fix it, it usually just gets worse.
Yeah, it's not going to get any better.
But you know what? Not true. This one is the best.
It's really okay. So it did improve it. Okay.
I liked it the most, and so did the audience, because it had more cohesion, it was shorter, and mercifully, moving forward as you watched it, where more of the kind of ideas and jokes came out.
Okay.
I was impressed that after all these years, he could go back and have the energy to do this.
Right. I mean, that's... For someone that maintains a relatively busy schedule and a lot of different art and things and activism and whatnot, it's astounding that he would take the time to revisit what many would probably just be like, well, that didn't work.
Yeah, if I had something like that I did where, something had gone wrong and it left a bad taste in your mouth, and, I wouldn't have the discipline or the energy to go back and get back into it.
Right.
Because if I did relive it.
Right, exactly. And you're going to turn something that was traumatic, or at least a bit of a bummer thing in the past, and you're going to bring it into your present, which just sounds awful.
And that's what doing these interviews about the 50th anniversary of the killings at Kent State are. It's like that was a traumatic experience. Fork in the road changed my life, and being forced to talk about it over and over and see the original archival footage and talk about two of the four students who were killed, who were my friends, Jeffrey Miller and Allison Krause. It's horrible. And
it's also one of the definitional moments that sort of molded your personality and your worldview that led to DEVO and all the rest of the art going forward. I mean, I was hesitant to bring it up last time, because it's a fucking drag, but also because I feel like it's been covered a lot, but I didn't even realize at the time. I was like, oh no, there's like an anniversary of that coming up, and that's definitely a not joking around, never forget. That's a moment we need to never forget, because it was sort of the
again, the significance should not be lost on anyone. We were protesting the expansion of the war into Cambodia from Vietnam by Richard Nixon without an act of Congress. Richard Nixon at that point had been accused, righteously so, of thumbing his nose at the Constitution and the separation of powers between the three branches of government, and doing things without the consent of Congress. Now, if that sounds familiar...
I was going to say, any of this ringing a bell?
Yeah, and we thought, but at the time, that year, 70, and then leading up to his impeachment, would be the worst time of American history we ever could live through, because it was, you were dealing with thugs and tyrannical right-wing ideologues, right?
Right.
And it felt so bad, but it ended up in an impeachment, and it felt like there was some resolution and some modicum of justice. What's happening today makes that episode in history look like kindergarten, like core. That's softcore.
That's like the Great Society compared to what we're dealing with now. I mean, it's.
Oh yeah. Oh, now we're into fist fucking.
I was gonna say a harsh joke, but that's even more of an evocative issue.
Oh, that's what's going on here.
Yeah, and that's there's no getting around that. So, and I read. I don't want to belabor too much, but I read in the book, a lot of your experiences put forward, and it really just seemed like that was where any pretense of there being an adult in the room for any other reason other than to put their boot on your face, kind of became your MO, right?
Right. That's the future. Is the boot coming down in the face of liberty, of mankind. Yes. And that's what we're seeing now.
And so when you think about your art, and again, as we discussed last time, and as you discussed ad nauseum many times before, DEVO was meant to be like, an art movement. And then it became to be known as a band, because they were all sort of an
collaboration. It was a multimedia art movement. It was experimental. And, you do what you can, right? You don't have 64 crayons, you have 8 crayons, and you don't have any money. You can only do something in a club, right? Which is great, what musicians can do with very little, right? They can create a world with very little. And so we were putting out there, in the best way we could, any way we could, fragments of our ideas, using music, costumes, movements, writings. And what happens is, we get subsumed into that punk new wave funnel, right? And we're just defined as part of it. And it's a train that's left the station. You're not going to set anybody straight. It's like, okay, we're punk. Okay, we're new wave, whatever. Because they want to commodify and trivialize it to make it something that's salable. Right?
And it's something they've done over and over again. Look at the early 90s with the bands that broke through. It took them a minute or two to figure out the formula. So the weirdos were again let in while they tried to figure it out. And then once the Borg from Star Trek adapted to the threat, then they found a way to manufacture their own alternative bands.
But the thing is, DEVO was actually DEVO. It's like there was substance there.
You had your own compass. You had your own ethos. Yeah. And it shows. And it was one of the reasons why, as we mentioned last time, and I certainly don't want to go over everything we went last time, but I think that when you the video compilation, when you watch all of the videos together, just as like a series, I mean, you see it's like there from the beginning.
That's right.
You see that the beginning was the end. You see it from the beginning. It's on a shoestring budget. It's kids in a garage, but like if you just were to give those young men like $1 million budgets, then it wouldn't really necessarily look that much different. It would just be a more adult version and articulated.
We expressed ourselves bigger.
Right, exactly. It would have been a bigger production, sure.
Well, I mean, there should have been a DEVO feature film. There should have been a DEVO Broadway play. There should be a DEVO documentary, and the documentary, the fact that it's not out, is something I can't even talk about because it's got nothing to do with me.
Okay, I did want to ask about that because I realized that was something we missed talking about last time. Okay.
It's not the director's fault. He kept submitting things. It's a long story, but I think I should just, defer to say anybody that has a question should ask Mark, his explanation of why there's no DEVO doc.
So we'll consider it an in-progress concern.
Well, it's there. There's everything you need is there.
Okay.
All the archival footage, all the interviews, all the cultural contextualization where you're showing what was going on at the time, socially, politically, culturally. It's all there. All there.
Gotcha. So everyone can draw their own conclusions. I trust in the audience to be a little smarter than the average bear. So go figure that out. On that and talking about archival footage, when talking about Human Highway, there's that footage of Neil Young and DEVO doing a "Hey Hey My My" that was posted. Well, it's made the rounds on YouTube many times. It's been taken down many times also.
Yeah.
It would be up for a while. It would be taken down. Some would be up for a while. It would be taken down. But what I love is the definitive version is posted by the AARP, which is an incredible DEVO moment. How did that come to pass? I mean, was that something where was it Neil's idea? Was it like was it just?
I'll tell you what happened is that point is, this movie went on over many, many, many months, and for some of the people involved, years. We came back from recording our album in Germany, and we came out to LA in April of '78, and we weren't happy with one of the songs that we had recorded in Germany, which was Come Back Johnny. And this guy, Patrick Gleason, who owned Different Fur Studios, who had worked with Neil, had also come to Mabuhay Gardens and seen us. And he came on like just a really good guy, really altruistic, like, hey, if you ever want to use my studio, blah, blah, blah. And so Mark goes, we'd like to re-record this song and give it a second shot, Oh, yeah, come on over. And we told Neil that's what we were doing. And so he got this idea to come over too and bring his camera crew, and we do stuff as well, right? So we re-recorded Come Back Johnny there. And then Neil started jamming with us live in the live room with Patrick Gleason there at the board with his engineer.
Sure.
And two camera guys from Neil's crew shooting. And he went and he showed us the progression to Hey Hey My My. So we started mutating. Like, okay,
right. Because it does sound like the arrangement is very DEVO, and it's a very primitive, evolved caveman take on it.
And then he just starts getting into this like jam with Boogie Boy.
Who's sitting in the crib, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but he's acting like It's if it's David Bowie and Mick Ronson where they pretended to blow each other on stage, right?
Right.
This is like a guitar battle where he's the only guy with the guitar and he's shoving it at Mark.
Yeah.
Boogie Boy playing the Moog, and it just turns into noise, and it went on and on and on. And Neil loved it so much, we shot it all, right? Like whatever you see that ends up in the movie, that's a snippet.
It seemed like it was the kind of thing that went on for quite some time, and that.
Oh my God, it went on. So,
but it's such a. I mean, it definitely existed as a clip, as a what am I looking at sort of moment, as its own. If you have no context,
we then went back and we did a finished mix of Come Back Johnny, and we liked it a lot. And then Patrick Gleason hits us with a huge studio bill and wants producer on it. That's a big problem for us, right?
Right.
Come Back Johnny on our record was from Germany with Brian Eno because we were getting screwed otherwise.
Well, and that's interesting because Come Back Johnny, isn't that, if I might be off base here, but wasn't that about JFK, like the JFK assassination and the whole culture behind that?
Well, it's one of those loose expressionistic things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's about like multiple layers of things.
It depends on who's asking, right? Exactly.
Like Snowball is like a sad love story based on the Sisyphean myth of rolling the ball up the hill. Yeah, Sisyphus, right? Mm-hmm. But it's also a story about scoring coke in an apron.
Right. So it depends on who asked the question where you could give the answer for. Right. Sure.
Yeah.
So talk to me about, of the many things. Well, first of all, I wish I had done a little more on this. I feel like there was some common cause with DEVO and the Cars, as much as the Cars was a very different entity. And it was very interesting to me that I can't remember that some of the later records, it kind of seems like they were almost sort of doing their version of what you were doing. And we talked about this briefly without mentioning names before, but I mean, am I off base here? I mean, what relationship, if any, was there?
1 second.
Sure. And we're back now.
I had to let Beta in. She was limping.
Oh no! Yeah, you got to make sure you got to be kind to the puppers.
She's on drugs now.
Is that sad or hilarious or both?
Well, actually, it seems to be alleviating the immediate pain.
Good, functional. Oh, good. The best possible outcome. Wonderful.
That's right.
So we're talking about the Cars.
The Cars are like, they were all style. That's what they were. They were cool and all style. They were the cool guys, right? DEVO were like the embarrassing nerd cousins, right? Like
sure,
where Ben was like going, I don't want to bring these guys to the party because the girls will think I'm not happening.
Right.
Right. I mean, we hung out with them, and I became very friendly with Rick and Ben, and I went socializing with Ben in Boston when we were shooting. I directed videos for them, and that guy, he was out of a film, right?
Ben Orr, you're talking about?
There were just so many girls around him all the time. And so one of the nights we were in town, they played locally, and watching Cars play was like the old cliche of watching paint dry.
Not a dynamic live show, huh?
I mean, it sounded perfect, as if you were playing a record.
Right.
And everything was mixed right, and everything was precise and in tune, and all the little hip, like, 60s guitar things, and voices mixed right. But just like automatons, dolls, right? They moved about as much as Kraftwerk, but of course there wasn't the concept of Kraftwerk. So you're thinking there should be energy here or some value-added element of seeing them live, and there wasn't. There wasn't.
It was just pretty much, here's the record, and here's like a stylish and cool-looking live show, and that's about the extent of it.
Like, every moment was like, we're cool.
Right. Well, yeah, and that was, which is amazing because for a man like Rick Ocasek, who will go and charitably say has a face made for radio, it's hey, good for him, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. But Ben was the one.
He definitely married up.
Ben was the chick magnet.
Yeah, I mean Ben was certainly the handsome one. Of the bunch.
So like we go backstage into the green room, and I'm watching this whole scene, and there's two girls that are really most aggressive hanging around him, and they're both cute. And I'm watching, and he's like looking over at me every so often and smirking and rolling his eyes. And then he says to them, he goes, "So, what are we going to do tonight?" And the girls look at each other, and it's like, "We?" And he goes, "Yeah, you and me, right?" And they go, "Well, I don't know." And he goes, "Well, if you want to come with me, you got to show me a little bit about what's about to happen."
Wow.
Yeah. And then he kind of got his sleepy eyes, and he looks over at me, and so of course these two girls kiss each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then he puts his arms around him like, "Okay, let's go." So when we saw him the next day in the studio, I go, "How do you do that? Like, what's going on here?" Right? I'm like dumb shit. Like, "Oh man, how does that work?"
Right.
God, I'd like to try that sometime.
Coming in like the Podunk, Ohio guy, yeah.
Yeah. And he goes, "You just got to know what you want, and you just got to let them know what you want." And then I always use the line, "Show me a little bit of what's about to happen." And I put that in the song Peekaboo.
Wow, that's awesome.
I took his line and I put it in Peekaboo.
Benjamin Orr, everybody. Benjamin Orr. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very important line within Peekaboo. So that's awesome to know that came from there. That's great.
Also, another important line in Peekaboo was, if you cannot see it, you think it's not there.
I remember.
Yeah. And that's where we are with coronavirus.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's certainly preview of the times for sure. Question from the peanut gallery here.
Yeah.
Back to the earlier story, because I wasn't paying the slightest bit of attention to it. There's a story, and this is a good one. There's a story / rumor that Neil originally saw Russ Never Sleeps on Boogie's diaper or something along those lines. Is there any truth, relevance, or kernel of truth to any part of that?
I'm trying to get the screen back, but I'm listening. I don't know what happened here.
I can still see you, so you're good for.
There we are.
All you're missing is me talking at the microphone at you. So you're
yes, we gave him that title because
really,
Mark and
Russ Never Sleeps. Okay.
Yeah, because we worked on a campaign for Rust-Oleum back in Akron, Ohio.
I knew this and I forgot about it. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
And we wore the T-shirts out to L.A. and he saw Mark in one, and he goes, "Russ Never Sleeps. What's that?" And we told him, and he loved it. He just ripped it off.
The rest is history. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he made a creative unlike use, so there was no problem.
Yeah, for sure. So there's another story, and I want to be mindful of your time, but I also want to there's other stuff I want to get into, but I would like, if you can, just a retelling of the artwork for Are We Not Men, which I know it's a crazy story. It was a Chichi Rodriguez originally, and there was like a copy. Can you please?
Have you seen that documentary?
I have, and it's freaking nuts. Is the best way that I can put it. Like
that's what happened. I know.
It's like I never knew. I never even conceived that like that whole thing could be that as insane as all that.
Well, everything with DEVO gets convoluted, and not because we orchestrated, because we had this image that we loved, and we had used it on Be Stiff, the independent single that we put out with Stiff Records in England, And then we told Warner Brothers when we signed with them, we want this to be our album cover for the first record. And Rick Serini, the head of the art department, loved it. He got the whole joke. Couldn't believe how cool it was. And, of course, what happens is it gets passed by the suits, and the manager of business affairs goes, "You can't use this. That's Chi-Chi Rodriguez, and I'm a golfer." And
sir, first of all, how dare you? Yeah.
Yeah, I respect Chi-Chi, and you're not going to make fun of Chi-Chi. And we'll get sued, right? So I go, well, why don't we just ask Chi-Chi if it's okay?
What's he going to care?
Yeah, and it's like, well, all right. And they let legal affairs people find Chi-Chi's people and write them a letter and say, this band wants to do this. But of course, there's no internet. There's no direct communication. Right. It gets lost in space, in the U.S. mail. And meanwhile, they're going, hey, if we don't get an answer and you guys are insisting on this, we're going to have to delay this record another month. So,
like, it hasn't been delayed enough already, because I remember that's what you mentioned at the time.
Why don't I have my airbrush guy, change it, Chi-Chi, so it's not Chi-Chi, and it's, and of course, Mark and I are concerned about what that's going to turn into. So we show him this, we collected all this whack shit. We show him this thing we collected from a newspaper in Akron earlier, where some airbrush artist showed the world what would happen if you combined the last 4 presidents, which were Kennedy and Nixon and Carter, right, and Johnson, right? And so here's this horrid mutant-looking guy.
Yeah, this abomination that should not be, yeah.
The 4 presidents, right? So we go, why don't you do this then? But leave Chi-Chi's hat, which is, a famous hat because of his hat band that his wife designed, who was Hawaiian, and leave the golf ball. And so they mocked it up, and now you're looking at true DEVO, a mutant. You're looking at a fucking mutant, but he's a golfer, and there's some Chi-Chi elements in there, but it's not Chi-Chi Rodriguez anymore. But now the manager of business affairs at Warner's, David Berman, says, no way, because that's Chi-Chi's hat band. And that's a golf ball, and we still know it's Chi-Chi.
Right.
And he personally, he takes whiteout and tape and ruby-lit red, he mocks up what's going to be acceptable.
Which is, in the process of it, making it more DEVO than anything you possibly could have planned for.
The first thing he did was, he'd seen enough punk records that he blocked out Chi-Chi's eyes, with a red eagle. Right. Like it's porno, and, it's like XXX. So the eyes were blocked out. The hat band was solid, not Madras. And then the golf ball, he took the striations out of the golf ball so that you didn't know it was a golf ball.
Right.
And just a white.
Like it looks almost quasi-religious or something.
Yeah. We had to send our manager, Elliot Roberts, up. They had a big fight. And we had to sign an indemnification that if anything happened, we'd be paying the millions of dollars.
Right.
Anyway, so it goes to press. They print it up. Then we get a letter from Chi-Chi. He's really into the idea, and his only request is, when you use my image, I want you to send me 50 records for my friends and family that I could pass out at Christmas time, right?
Right.
Well, Warner's chickens out, doesn't tell him, well, it's not you anymore, right?
Right. It's like this mutated, sort of like subhuman version of you. Yeah.
They send him the licensing money, $2,500, and then the album comes out. And that comes out in August, and in November, Warner ships him 2 cases. And of course, he calls his people and go, this doesn't look like Chi-Chi Rodriguez, because actually Chi-Chi's quite handsome in a very
absolutely
way. Handsome. And this guy, that was on our cover now, was a dork, like something on a Mad magazine.
Right. It looks like a caricature. Yeah, it's a caricature by proxy almost.
And so, because DEVO has this reputation of punking businessmen and corporations and playing with the culture, everybody assumes that this was a setup, right? That we did this on purpose,
right,
to Chi-Chi, right?
Just to be a jerk to Chi-Chi Rodriguez.
And of course, it's useless in that world. You could never make it right, and it went away. And DEVO was unfairly characterized, and so that documentary last year was the first time the truth came out.
Which
and I
is
got
a crazy story, like an insane story, and it's the kind of thing that, you know, the whole time, like, no, really, no.
But that's one. I have 5 more of those, and of course the next one. You're just going to have to do this again because I got to go. But
I was gonna say
the next one will be about John Hinckley Jr.
Okay. So,
yeah,
and that's which was the on what do you call it?
Isaiah,
right?
Yeah, and it has to do with the famous actress.
So a couple things. First of all, I want to thank you for your time again and for coming back. And this is delightful and great. But also, I realized last time that we did not get the chance to discuss the winery, and I am enjoying.
Oh, you had some, right?
I am literally in a.
Is that the rosé? This is my rosé.
This is the rosé. I have it for those who are watching on the Instagram. I have it in a flammable liquid beaker.
Yeah,
it is the rosé of Pinot Noir. I thought that was an appropriate decanter for this, and it's lovely.
It really came out well. The 50 by 50 rosé of Pinot Noir from Carneros, and it's really good.
And I'm throwing that in the
50 by 50.
Yep.
Here's the Pinot Noir itself. There's the real Pinot,
which is great, and that's what I cracked open when I thought we were talking yesterday, and that didn't last long enough for for the show, which. Maybe that says more about me than anything else, but hey, man. But can you just real quickly speak a little bit to the winery? If fans want to, you do mail order. You ship the wine.
Most
50 by 50 is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, now my only sales are direct sales because
right.
All my accounts, my bars and restaurants, they're not buying wine. They're trying to sell every bit of inventory they have left and stay in business.
Sure.
Right under this lockdown, safer at home stuff. And it's destroyed millions of people's jobs and lives, as you know. And the first hit were the restaurant business, the hospitality business, the airlines, the touring business. We were supposed to do 4 shows this year, all gone, folks. You know, so a lot of my friends, they can't do their recording sessions, they can't tour. It's all you can do is stay home and drink 50 by 50, which is
right. And it is great wine. And I got to say, as someone that...
It really is.
What I was so amazed because I heard tell of it from a mutual friend, Matt, and I was like, oh, cool. And then I kind of had an idea of what it probably was. And I'm just kind of picky with wines. The only real one I like is Pinot Noir. And I was like, holy crap, this is the kind I like. And then I was like, oh, it's a rosé of Pinot Noir, too. Okay, that's interesting. That's fascinating.
Well, I work hard on it. I have a place on Silverado Trail that I make the wine in this barn with a collaborator, Eric Lyman. He's like the technical enologist, chemical guy. You need the chemistry guy. And I source the grapes from a single vineyard for the rosé, and I source the organic grapes for the actual Pinot Noir from a single vineyard in Sonoma Coast. So the rosé grape I use is perfect because it's soft, and you want soft when you do rosé. And that's Pinot Noir clone. It's called 667. That comes from Rinky Vineyards in Carneros. And then the big boy wine, the big red wine, I use Hamard and 667, but it's from Sonoma Coast, about 700 feet high on a slope with lots of nighttime air and cold and then hot in the day. That's what you want. Stressed vines. And it's all one block. So, it's single vineyard wine, and it's very seriously made in a French style.
Yeah, and like as I said, I thought the perfect decanter was this beaker that says flammable liquid that was given to me. I believe it was meant as a gag gift, and it was something that has long sat on the shelf. And I'm like, I gotta remember to bust that loose when I have some wine next time. And
I only use actual chemistry decanters.
Right, exactly.
Because they're the best.
They work well for the cause as well. You know,
They have the shape that you really want to use. Yeah.
So, Jerry, I want to thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, let me know. I'll be back.
Yeah,
I like talking to you.
It's great having you. I mean, yeah, let's do it again sometime. I'm fully down. And
all right.
Best speedy recovery to the pup.
Yeah.
And
Conan Neutron. We love the neutron bomb because it leaves buildings intact.
Absolutely, it's functional.
Yeah. All right,
thanks so much, Jerry.
Bye-bye.
And there he goes, Mr. Jerry Casale. Once more, the man, the myth, the legend. Cool guy. I'm glad we got to talk about some of the stuff that we missed last time. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. This has been Protonic Reversal, a stay-at-home special, extra edition, mini-sode, mini-particle. Cool. Thanks so much. And take it easy. Stay safe. Etc. 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 You with me? Are you with me? Okay. Thanks, everyone.
of the soup de jour. He's been with the world. I wanna win this prophylactic tour. Afraid nobody around here understands my potato. I think I'm only a spot boy looking for a real tomato. He's been with the world, and I'm tired of the soup de jour. He's been with the world. I wanna end this prophylactic tour. Afraid nobody around here comprehends my potato. Guess I'm just a spud boy looking for that real tomato. Swamp Patrol, nowhere to go. Moving robots from under reality. Coming stuff, we work around the clock. We shove the balls in the hole. The Swamp Patrol, nowhere to go. Moving robots from under reality. Coming stuff, we work around the clock. We shove the balls in the hole. The Swamp Patrol, nowhere to go. Moving robots from under reality. Coming stuff, we work around the clock. We shove the balls in the hole. Shove it.
All right. Well, there you go. So, we had the Neil Young enabled, mutated Hey Hey My My with Neil Young and DEVO that we discussed this episode. We had Comeback Joni from Human Highway, which we also discussed. And we had Smart Patrol Mr. DNA. Those are all songs by DEVO. If you're here, yeah, probably know that. If not, welcome aboard. Right then, there we go. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I sure did. Name of the show, it's Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. Thank you for listening to it.
Come to the close of our broadcast day.
This show broadcasts on air. RadioNope.com. Say yes to Nope.
This is my farewell transmission.
Tonight's episode was the first one broadcast on both Instagram Live TV, Instagram TV, and YouTube.
Ships at sea.
So if you came aboard in those formats,
Anyone
welcome,
within
welcome.
the sound of my voice.
RadioNope.com is the mothership. RadioNeutron.com for the archives. You can get them all, including
I've got
episode 159.
50,000 watts of power.
What's this? What's the first part of this? This is meant to be an addendum, but we talked about enough stuff that I think it qualifies as its own episode. So
Ionize the air.
take of that what you will. If you like the show, please share it around. Thank you to everyone that's been doing that. Tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell a frenemy.
This
It helps grow the show. It helps.
turns sound
It helps.
into electricity. Can you hear me now?
And of course, as always,
Out on
Stay safe out there.
128, you're dark and lonely.
take it easy.
I got my radio on. Can you hear me now? 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 The end of radio. And that snare drum and that drum roll means we've got a winner. If you're the fifth caller, or any caller at all, welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. There is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, got my radio on. Can you hear me now?
Thank you.